space operators and governments worldwide to solve the hardest problems in space mission operations. Jason Held is the founder and CEO of Saber Astronautics, a company trusted by defense agencies. We know how to launch satellites, but do we actually know how to operate civilizations in space yet?
If you have a community on the moon, we're 6 days away from Earth. But if something goes wrong, how long does it take to get help? You have to prepare the logistics for everything that could possibly go wrong.
One mistake can destroy a mission.
One mistake can kill your mission, but one mistake doesn't have to.
How do you think about leadership?
If you see a good sports team, don't look at how they behave on the court. Look at how they behave in casual circumstances. If someone's in trouble, who helps them? Does everybody know what's going on? Is everybody aware of their surroundings? Okay, these are the kind of things you do as a leader to build trust between the people.
Machines make decisions without human approval in space.
It's a question of trust. We use machine learning and we use AI in our development with experienced engineers, more so than with the junior engineers. We've got a tool that automates the detection of space events because no single human is going to be able to sit there and look at 52,000 objects and say, that's the one. Believe me, we tried it, right? So it's okay, automate that thing.
How should we design resilient orbital systems?
There are some standards on the data layer. There's some really good standards. So people who study like IT engineering can easily pick up a CCSDS document and say, okay, it's a cousin. I can kind of see where it fits. And a lot of like satellite command and control and telemetry documents will use that.
What keeps you up at night, when you think about the future of space?
What would scare me a little bit is the idea of using, you have seen collisions in space that nobody talks about.
The space will become a contested domain, and are we prepared for that?
It's been a contested domain for over 50 years.
What problem in the space industry frustrated you enough to start Saber Astronautics?
Oh, I love this question.
So was there a moment during your studies where you realized space wasn't just exciting, it was a serious responsibility?
I knew that from the age of 15. Spend more time in education to realize the seriousness of the industry. It's a massive industry. It's a massive industry. I think it's economic, becoming much more favorable to us becoming a spacefaring civilization. What we've seen, and the things that you say are risks, are real. I agree with you. Kessler syndrome is a risk. But the other side of that coin is the reason why.
So how does SDA integrate with national security operations technically?
So SDA, like I said before, is a military thing predominantly. And we do a lot of SDA. Maybe if it's okay with you, can I invert that question a little bit and say, how does SDA interact with the commercial sector? Because SDA is, whatever nation's military would be buying data from the U.S., usually under agreement, or from the commercial sector if they've got the money for it.
Yeah.
Okay, and they'll track their own satellites and they'll do their own space domain awareness, and they'll have software, hopefully ours, who knows, but software that'll monitor not just where it's going, but give the operators the ability to understand why things are happening, right? Mm-hmm. Is this satellite moving because it's trying to move? Did something hit it? These are the kind of things. SDA is all about protecting and defending your nation's space assets. So Australia, for example, 52 satellites that fly the Australian flag. Okay. The Australian military job would be to say, okay, is there any foreign actor that is trying to disrupt our commercial satellites? Almost like the rules of the sea, similar kind of thing. Yeah. And the commercial side still also has the need to know where that data is coming from because they need to know where their satellites are as well. So there's a lot of that kind of crossover.
Yeah, we don't operate in certainty.
Well, nobody has pure certainty.
Yeah.
Did you know of all the collisions that happened in the world, that that NORAD tracks. And NORAD is seen, at least in the Western world, as the highest standard for space domain awareness. Russia and China would be the ones that have comparable capabilities in space domain awareness. Okay, but NORAD's been doing this for a long time. The best system in the world.
Yeah.
The satellite collisions that happened were a surprise. Every single one of them weren't even on the top 10 list of things they were worried about on the day that they happened. It's an industry problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how does commercial mission operations differ from government mission operations technically and culturally?
Well, I mean, a lot of the tech is similar. In our own ops centers, we've done both. We've done military support. So we ran the Pacific for a military for nearly 4 years. And surprisingly, some of the techniques that we brought into the military, they had never tried before. And we were able to help them, which we had a lot of pride in that. We're really proud of it. It's like you make something that is useful to something at that level is quite exciting. The cultural difference, you could hear it in the way people speak. Saber tends to be a more relaxed culture, just by, like I said, we don't take ourselves serious, we take our job seriously. So the first kind of military exercise we did, the military exercise, the first one that we were doing, they tend to be a little bit quieter and more serious. They don't joke around that much. So like Team Alpha, Team Bravo. So fanatic, Team Alpha, your role is this, Team Bravo, your role is this. And Saber was like, all right, we're going to call it Team Aardvark and Team Booyah. We just have fun with it. But they had fun with us, and the cultural difference was there, but it wasn't anything which stopped work. And it was kind of fun for them and kind of fun for us,
Yeah.
That's pretty normal.
Yeah, because different missions demand different operational philosophies, I guess.
The operational philosophy wasn't too different. The operational philosophy has to do with how you do your job. The culture you bring as a commercial entity. We like Saber focuses on innovate. We're an R&D company that does space ops and things like this. Yeah. So we brought in the ability to change is a big part of who we are. And the military has to have standards typically, and the reliability has to be baked in. So the commercial sector is up to us to prove that we got the reliability while we're joking around about our team Aardvarks and Booyahs. Yeah, I don't know. Once we prove the reliability, they let us joke around as much as we liked, kind of thing. They joke with us at that point, but that's kind of how it works.
Yeah. So in this process, how do you see digital twins changing mission operations?
Well, this is a big research area for us. So we pioneered a lot of digital twins for space, and it's a constant. It's a constant improvement, and that the experiment is how much digital twin do you need to make the life of the operator useful, and what part of that is window dressing that they don't actually need. I think it ties in with automation. That's what I think. That's the first thought. Digital twin, understanding the why. It's that machine learning aspect that Saber's been doing for a long time. That's kind of the core of any digital twin. It's that kind of engine that looks at what's happening in space and then recreate it in the simulation. For us, that's where it's at.
Yeah, because simulations, they are becoming, more critical to operations. Simulation. Yeah.
Yes. Especially in the pre-flight testing.
Yeah.
Especially in pre-flight testing, because you want to know what breaks before it goes up there. And the U.S. hasn't historically done digital twins as good, as well as, I speak English very goodly, as well as other countries. Okay, so Australia, India, Japan, 50-50 compared to Australia, India, and a couple of countries in Europe. And what's interesting is the countries that had space aspirations but didn't have as much money for the large engineering programs. India is a bit of a exception. India spent a lot of effort on software to begin with, just as a nation, and simply applied that skill set into the space program as part. So a lot of the new companies in India are like, oh, we're going to digital twin this, and then we're gonna tie it into our hardware engineering. So I saw them be more free to do that. Well, American companies were very, very much focused on making the engineering really robust. Say, okay, well, we know things might break. Let's just make it really hardened. It's kind of, it's more expensive, but it's safe. It's different kind of like national cultures and their approach that nations took to their own space programs affected that. And Australia's story has got some similarities to India in that the commercial sector didn't have a lot of money. India's changed a lot, actually, on the commercial side. But historically, India spent a lot of money on engineering for like Israel and things like that. But the companies had no money. There was no startup industry there. And the startups brought in a lot of digital twin capabilities. And Australia had a similar thing where a lot of startups were like, Australia's really good at software. But it's just been the way it's evolved.
Yeah. So how do you, validate operational readiness for complex missions?
Well, the first thing is during testing, pre-flight. You got to do a lot of work in pre-flight. And it's at every layer. So what you have is a test satellite that's basically a engineering copy
Yeah.
of your actual flight satellite. And typically you'll send your flight satellite through thermal vac testing and things like this. And when it gets shipped to the launch provider, it's usually sent in a box for a couple of months. And you're using that time to test out the engineering with the hard satellite with your ops team, and all the way down to the dish network provider. Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll do complete loop testing of everything in the way before I fly. At the same time, we're testing our operational ConOps with the ops teams.
Yeah, operational assurance becomes really critical for all the operations.
No, absolutely. And the more testing you do, the more chances of success.
We have talked about systems and operations, but ultimately, this is about humanity's future in space.
Okay.
Yeah, we know how to launch satellites, but do we actually know how to operate civilizations in space yet?
I don't think we need to operate a civilization. We don't operate a civilization here on Earth. It's kind of how I see it. Maybe I don't understand the question. What do you mean by operate a civilization in
So,
space?
like, space is always a contested domain, right? Now, in terms of any, catastrophic on Earth,
Yeah.
so we are planning to set up human survival on Mars, Moon. How do we actually, know how to operate civilization there in space?
Maybe we could rephrase that a little differently again,
Yeah.
if that's okay. So operating a civilization, maybe we frame it as an economy. So how do you keep a community alive in space? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
That's a logistics question. So if you have a community on another planet, say the moon, which is the most likely in the next 10 to 20 years, less so than Mars these days. If you have a community on the moon, we're 6 days away from Earth. But if something goes wrong, how long does it take to get help? And the International Space Station has had incidents very recently, actually. You might have a health incident of an astronaut. You might have a mechanical instrument incident on the return spacecraft, where if you don't have a safety ready, then you can't do it. So you have to prepare that for a larger scale when you're talking about a base or a community that's going to be on the moon. Even more so than you have. If you look at the Australian Antarctic Division, what they have to do. I was talking to one of their guys that they get their appendix removed before they go to the Antarctic. Do you realize that? You actually get your appendix removed before you go to for like a several month stay.
Okay.
Because if on the off chance, the unlikely is an edge case. So what are the chances that you're going to go and you're going to get appendicitis? Apparently not zero. It's going to be pretty low, though, right? So what do you do? What do you do if they're on the moon, based on the moon? Well, you have to prepare the logistics for everything that could possibly go wrong. I see that different from, say, if you're going to ask about like a civilization, how do you operate a civilization? I don't. Uh, Now you're talking you're adding more of a cultural aspect to it. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but
It does. So, if Earth's infrastructure disappeared tomorrow, could space infrastructure rebuild civilization, or are we still far from that capability?
well, you would need the capacity to have a minimum of 500 people to have a society with enough uh, uh, genetic variability to survive long term. And that's just from the science, and 500 is the minimum. So you could do that, and you'd still have some weirdly mutated people, but as a species, we'd survive. Very linear family trees, I don't know if we want that. So I'd say we're not there yet, but it's not a question of science. It's a question of economy. The better the science gets, the easier the economy gets. So there's the tie in there.
Yeah, because I think we are in a phase of rapid launch, cadence, commercialization, competition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, are we treating orbit like a frontier or like an ecosystem we could permanently damage?
More the latter. It's people are people identified as a ecosystem that we could damage, but they're not doing enough yet. I think is what it is. People reckon, but they don't know how to solve it yet. I think is a problem.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
because most people talk on Kessler syndrome. If a Kessler type cascade began today, how prepared is humanity operationally to respond?
well, we would go to VLEO, very low Earth orbit,
Yeah.
and we would be okay. We'd have to relaunch a whole bunch of stuff. Starlink would be gone. Without question, Starlink would be either the cause or the greatest entity to get damaged. So they're the ones that have the most at stake.
Yeah.
Um, all other orbits would be okay. So the GeoBelt would be fine. MEO would be fine. GPS would be fine. Cislunar would be fine. But saying it's fine doesn't mean that we can ignore it like we did back in the 80s and 90s, which started some of these problems in the 2000s as well. It just means that we won't have to make the same mistake twice in those regions. So if you think, would humanity be, what would be harmed the most in a Kessler syndrome? We would have satellite communications, but the traditional stuff that we've had before about 5 to 10 years ago, right? So Optus becomes more important. Telesat, NBNCo would become more important. Right now, Optus and NBNCo and traditional telecommunications companies like theirs are under threat from low Earth orbit mega constellations commercially. But a Kessler syndrome means, guess what? We're back to the 2000s and 2010s.
Yeah. So, see, when I think of, long-term debris growth scenarios,
Yeah.
I realize that the orbits we are using today might be harder for the future generations to access if we are careless.
Yep.
We are not
Yeah.
concerned about how many satellites we are putting in orbit, and that thought always stays with me. It makes me, feel space less like opportunity and more like inheritance.
It's both.
Both.
I think I agree with you. I agree with you on it. It comes back to your part. What keeps me up at night is not the military side. It's the misadventures of the commercial sector.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we think of collisions and the cascade arises with collisions,
Yeah.
I think space becomes really, really dangerous.
It can be.
Yeah.
And it's definitely something that people have identified as a risk. It is both an opportunity and a risk. Okay, so you got to see both sides of the coin. Is my advice. On the risk side, there's a lot of engineering that needs to happen, a lot of science that needs to happen to improve the economics of low Earth orbit. So companies that are removing space junk are only starting to get born. Companies that like I said, Kessler syndrome does not end our experience in the space industry. It doesn't. There's a lot of Chicken Little around that. Oh, humanity is going to end if we have a Kessler syndrome. No, it's not. But it is going to cause problems.
Yeah.
So we don't want to be Chicken Little about it. And not you, but I've heard a lot of my friends will do it. So you don't want to be Chicken Little about it. You got to be objective. Okay, and the objective answer is data driven. It's evidence driven. The evidence is not great. Collisions are happening. People are not talking about the collisions. Companies are hiding if they got a collision because they don't want to lose their investments. Okay. Militaries are acting in space, and the geopolitical environment is tense. And there are some nations who have threatened to cause some of these problems that we're talking about because these are last minute scenarios for these countries. This is like a nuclear scenario, right? So you can't stay up at night, or you can't control it. So don't try. I grew up of an era where some 54, right? So I grew up in a time where the Cold War was all about nukes. Like kids were hiding under desks. They had nuke drills. When I was a kid, can you imagine a nuke drill? Like you're 8 years old, hide under your desk. A nuke might be coming right now. So I was like, this desk is going to. I was 8 years old and I knew it was stupid. I was like, this desk is not going to solve a nuke. But it's put that aside. Focus on what's real. And what's real is if low Earth orbit and low Earth orbit is a range. That's why I mentioned VLEO, right? Human space flight is in a very lower, like with 360 kilometers. That's going to take a hit. Human space flight, because it's expensive to send people. The reason why it's so low is because it's cheaper. So then anybody doing human space flight is going to have to think, how are we going to navigate through this massive debris field? That's going to take a hit. So there are real risks.
Yeah. So, as AI is trending, it is also challenging, humanity. Do you agree?
It's both a challenge and an opportunity.
Yeah. So, at what point should machines make decisions without human approval in space?
I got a PhD in machine learning. So I know where the bodies are buried in this field. The answer to all automation is you test. You test the edge cases. You test the beginning and the end. You test the minuses, the zeros, and the large positives. You test the range.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's a question of trust. In space has been the slowest to adopt automation as an industry. It's been the slowest to adopt any change because the need to trust dominates the need to build automation. Okay. So if you're adding in machine learning to the mix, what does that mean? Machine learning is a tool in the toolbox. What are you using it for? You're using it to save yourself time as an operator or time as an engineer. We use machine learning and we use AI in our development with experienced engineers, more so than with the junior engineers. But we have a very, very good process to check for errors. We have both human and automated ways. And that way we get the benefits of the AI in terms of time and speed, but the reliability that we're bringing in with the human being. And it's the same thing for implementing. So any type of thing that you want to automate, we've got a tool that automates the detection of space events, because no single human is going to be able to sit there and look at 52,000 objects and say, that's the one. Believe me, we tried it, right? So it's okay, automate that thing.
Yeah.
And Saber's doing real well because of that, but it's so use it like a tool in the toolbox. Don't try and buy into the hype, which is like it's going to kill all of humanity and kill all your jobs. It's not. It's not going to kill your jobs.
Yeah, I think space is, unforgiving. One mistake can destroy a mission. How does that reality shape how you think about leadership and risk?
One mistake can kill your mission, but one mistake doesn't have to. when you're in a mission and you're flying a satellite for real, what you realize is there are mistakes that happen all the time. There are parts that get degraded all the time. Radiation will affect you all the time. Even with the most shielded spacecraft, and like Hubble was massively shielded and things were going, like we said before, we had these errors in Hubble. Didn't destroy the mission. Yeah, you sat down, you fixed the problem. That's what operations is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it shapes leadership. It does shape how you see risk. Leadership is the act of motivating people to do the job. And in space, people come pre-motivated, which makes the leadership in some certain respects a little easier. The understanding of risk comes from knowing what things can break in a safe fashion. It sounds like a contradiction, but it's not. Understanding what things can break in manageable ways and what things can't. And the way you handle the things that can't is you just like you test the spacecraft, like we said before, you're testing the ops team. And if you have automation in the mix, you test the automation. So wherever it is on that decision loop, and leadership is around understanding what's going on, making decisions, and then managing the team, that kind of technical aspect of it. And you could test all these things along the way.
Yeah, because leadership becomes, central under such pressure.
Maybe. So leadership, what you just described, is kind of an event. And what was that movie? Apollo 13, right? So we always kind of glorify, they always have the same haircut. I should get that haircut. You got the same kind of 1960s haircut and the same kind of inflection of voice.
You.
Yeah, I had it. I look great. These days I look like a shaggy beast. But the leadership is yes, that aspect of directing a team. It comes with practice. There's an element of leadership that every individual has. You don't have to be leader of a team to be a leader. Because you could lead yourself and discipline yourself, I think, is quite important. And we look for people who have that kind of internal kind of maturity to do that on our ops teams. But also that kind of, the leader's job is not when things go wrong, but the preparation for that is before. I mentioned training and testing and testing the team, but also a culture.
Yeah.
And usually the culture is a responsibility, but also the culture is taking care of each other.
Yeah.
Almost like if you see a good sports team, did you ever do a sport when you were younger?
No.
So if you ever look at like a sports team and how they work, don't look at how they behave on the court. Look at how they behave in casual circumstances. If someone's in trouble, who helps him? Does everybody know what's going on? Is everybody aware of their surroundings? Are they going out to dinner together? A new person comes on the team. Do you get to know them? Okay, these are the kind of things you do as a leader to build, and it's all around trust between the people.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah. When does space stop being a scientific environment and become a strategic domain? And are we already there?
We've been there for 60 years. Space has always been a strategic domain.
Yeah, it is. But to our listeners, to make it more simple,
Okay.
how can you explain that?
Well, I mean, space was born with the strategic need for the United States to beat the Russians to the moon. And the reason why was partly to motivate their own citizens. And so that strategic decision is a long-term decision. Okay. It's a long-term decision. And setting up NASA as well was a strategic decision to build jobs. So your young listeners they might know about SLS and Artemis and things like that. Would they know about this?
Yeah, they might.
They might.
Yeah.
Okay. So big spacecraft that are going to the moon and saying all the strategic decision was because all these NASA centers were in locations in the United States that didn't have good jobs. So Houston, Florida Space Coast, and LA and parts of LA, and I think NASA Ames was the only exception. But these were the strategic decision in the U.S. was we're going to build jobs here. We're going to do these programs that also feeds into science and other. These are the strategic decisions to do this.
So, according to you, who should ultimately control Earth's orbital environments? say governments, commercial operators, or a global authority?
It's the same question as who controls the sea, who controls land. These are negotiated. Land is an easy one. We control the land that our people are on typically, and wars will happen if you disagree on whose people are on whose land.
Yeah.
Okay. In the sea, we say okay, it's your land to the ocean, but certain number of kilometers past that.
Yeah.
You can't do it in space.
Yeah.
Because satellites go over every part.
Yeah.
So your rules are no nation owns space. There's no one nation that owns space. I think that's going to change for the moon.
For the moon.
I think that's going to change for asteroids and the moon. Because the current law says nobody owns the moon. I don't think that law is going to last. Not in practice.
Okay. So what is the single biggest operational challenge preventing humanity from becoming a true spacefaring civilization?
I think it's economic. I think it, and the economics are becoming much more favorable to us becoming a spacefaring civilization. I should expand on that.
Yeah.
What we've seen, and the things that you say are risks are real. I agree with you. Kessler syndrome is a risk. But the other side of that coin is the reason why companies are entering this area is because they are making money from it. There's massive investments into it. The military side is also encouraging the economic potential in similar but weird ways that we had for air traffic control from the 1920s. What's happening is the military use of space is expanding very quickly.
Yeah.
The militaries now need to do maneuvering. Maneuvering requires a lot of fuel. The requirement for fuel is an economic problem. Now, is it cheaper to get fuel from the moon or fuel from Earth? Once the engineering is done, it's cheaper to get it from the moon or from an asteroid than it is from Earth. Once it's done. Right now, nobody is yet putting the money up to do the engineering, or very few are doing it. But we're starting to see that change because now the militaries are saying, well, we need to maneuver. We need the spacecraft that can maneuver.
Yeah.
We need the fuel to pay for it. And you got companies that are doing space fuel tanks on orbit. So you're seeing the first companies that are getting investments to do these things. So spacefaring civilization is simply following that path of economics. And that's what we didn't have before. We didn't have that path. People were saying, I want to go to moon and Mars for the humanity's sake. Yeah. Don't think of who's going to pay for it and why it's economically feasible. Well, now finally, there's an economic reason for it. It's all stemming from all these geopolitical tensions, which nobody wants these geopolitical tensions. Nobody wants it.
Yeah.
But the side effect is the way the military is competing in space is changing very quickly and in ways which are making moon and human space civilization much more economically feasible than they weren't before.
Yeah. Overall, how has building Saber changed you as a person?
Oh my God, I don't know. Ask my wife. I don't know. I how have I changed? It's like that first question I asked, can you change? Are you capable of changing? My old fencing coach used to ask me that. I used to fence as that was my sport when I was a kid growing up. And the ability to change is important, but your life will change you just by going through it. Saber's been a business at 18 years. My engineering skills are rusty. I used to be a good engineer. Now I answer emails for a living. It has helped me to think more strategically. I'll say that. So, because I got to think long term about the company. I don't think about the product or the science or the engineering. I'm like, okay, how does this engineering affect other people? How does it affect the industry? How can I make it have more an effect on the industry? Things like that. That's, I guess, probably the biggest change.
Yeah, because I believe building organizations transforms individuals.
I don't know. I'll have to think about that one. I nobody has ever asked me how has it changed me as a person. I think I'm the same as a person, but I'd have to ask myself from 20 years ago. I don't know. I'll have to think about that.
Yeah. So what leadership lessons did you learn the most hard way through this process of building Saber?
Most of my leadership experience I learned in the Army. The commercial side of things, probably that strategic thinking, but also the value of culture within an organization. That's probably the most important lesson I had, because I've seen engineering teams come together. Hiring really smart people is great, but you need to hire smart people that are good people, smart people that get along, and that's something that when you're going through a university program, if you're doing a PhD, it wasn't really a thing. Nobody cared. If you're a weirdo or a jerk, nobody cares. If you're in the Army and you're a jerk, nobody cares, because in 2 years you're in a different job anyways. You get a whole different crop of weirdos. But when you're running a company, especially if it's your company, right? If you join a company and you're an employee or an engineer, an employee of that company, everybody else around is if the company culture isn't good, you leave. And usually when you leave, you get a pay raise, because you got this experience from this other company. A year later, you get a better pay. When you're running the company, it's your baby, so you got to make sure the people on board are following the kind of culture that you're setting.
Yeah. So how do you handle pressure when failure is not an option?
Failure is definitely an option. Failure is an option. That's how you handle it.
So how do you handle that pressure?
Failure is an option. No, nobody says failure. Failure is not an option is great on TV. And of course, having human spaceflight, failure is an option, but human spaceflight fails too. What you want to avoid is you want to avoid catastrophic failure. Catastrophic failure is not an option. And in business, catastrophic failure is the company goes under. That's the catastrophic failure for a business. For space, catastrophic failure is a satellite breaks, and it breaks in a way which causes damage to itself and others. And the way we handle that is, you can't predict the future, but you can set the conditions to make sure that everything is as prepared as you could possibly make it.
Yeah.
And there is a point where you got to make a decision: do I fly or do I not? That is the point which pressure can begin, because if there's money on the table, whoever's handing that money wants to make sure you meet that deadline. What you have to do is have the courage to be able to say no if you don't think it's safe enough. If you think it's a catastrophic failure, you say no. People will generally respect that. And in most cases, and you hear in the news, like the shuttle launched, the engineers said no, and the politicians said yes. It launched, it blew up. Everybody's traumatized. It's a traumatic event for a 15-year-old kid home from school watching that. It's a traumatic event, and it's more traumatic for the family that has to deal with it, right? As an operator in this industry, there are failure modes which are not catastrophic, as what education and training and experience gives you to know the difference between the thing that's not catastrophic and the thing that is. And the leadership side of it is the culture of people that help each other out are not afraid to identify what that is, and making sure that kind of honesty path throughout the chain of command is where that leadership goes from the engineer all the way up to the top, and it has to be prominent at the top. Go ahead.
It's expensive, it's visible, but irreversible.
This is what courage is.
Yeah.
Courage is not doing something when things are bad. Courage is doing something when you know everybody's against you. Doing the right thing when everybody tells you to do something different. That's what takes courage.
Yeah. I think, this kind of really forces a kind of internal discipline, emotional control, clarity of thought. Do you agree?
Yeah, 100%. 100% agree. Yeah.
So did you develop that resilience intentionally, or did the environment shape it for you?
The resilience side I've always had as a kid, even as a kid. I was always a stubborn person. I guess tempering stubbornness with empathy is the important bit, that I think people, you have a lot of empathetic people who kind of go with the flow. You have a lot of stubborn people who have no empathy.
Yeah.
If you're stubborn, but you have empathy together, those are really good attributes for leadership. Okay. The empathy side means you're going to listen to others, and you will consider when you're wrong. When somebody calls you out and says, I don't agree with you. This wrong, this wrong. The usual, what's the emotion that somebody would have? It's anger, right?
Yeah.
If somebody does that to you, so what do you? I feel mad. Somebody's calling me out. As a space professional, as a scientist, not just space, but broader, the best emotion you could have for that is actually curiosity.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and it's a learned thing, because the natural kind of response is to be anger, but you could learn. And that's why I learned during my PhD, actually, is when, because it was always this stubborn guy. People would say, you're wrong. I'd be like, but am I though? Am I really wrong? I don't know. I don't agree with you. And that's a good thing, right? Because if you tie that in with an inquisitive mind and empathy for others and a curiosity response, that's going to take you really far in life. I'm telling you, it's really all, as a human, that's all you really need.
So outside of work, what keeps you grounded?
My wife, the love of my life, she keeps me grounded. And there are times, talking a lot of schmack right now about empathy, and there are times I lose empathy. Everyone who's good leaders has bad moments. Everyone, we're humans, right? I mean, and the wife, she's not interested in the space industry. She was always there. And having a person in your life that's able to kind of be outside of the pressures you're under, and kind of like, okay, this is what you're hitting right now. Really helpful.
Yeah, interesting. But leadership also has a trajectory. Small decisions, small corrections, all of that, will make as a complete person.
Yeah. Leadership it's trainable. It's very trainable. It's training, but also life experience.
And I think over time, they also determine where you end up.
Well, leadership ability, sure, but also your environment. You could be the most talented person in the world, talented team, with the best plan in the world. Because leadership has a planning. It's got a technical aspect, which is related to management and how do you plan something, and then that third. So competency as individuals or as a team, your ability to plan, and the third bit is your environment. You could have perfection in these two. You could have the perfect plan and a great team of people, but if your environment isn't very good, it's not going to be. It's going to be really, really tough.
Yeah.
Really tough. Yeah.
So, what do young engineers and founders misunderstand most about working in space?
Depends on where you go. I think in Australia, there's a lot of programs that have space degrees, but don't actually teach space. They teach aeronautical. For a young engineer, they don't have the core classes that companies need yet. And it's a lot of Australian companies that need them and need to hire them. What was your question? What do they need? Is that what you're asking?
So, what do young engineers and founders misunderstand
What do they misunderstand?
most about working in space?
I think in Australia specifically, there's this kind of doe-eyed view of the industry, and it could be two sides of the coin. Either it's fragile, it kind of goes with that common fragility. Some of that's come from the community of angst around funding. And that's a misunderstanding I think we've covered. And the other side is this side of space is kind of this humanistic sort of industry, and it kind of is. Like I know where that's coming from, and I agree with it actually. Because I feel the same way. That's the emotional side of why we do space, because this is grand adventure, and we see the sci-fi. We want that in our lives, and the reality is what you make of it. And that's probably the lesson for the young people. As young, recent graduate, right? You got your whole career. I didn't start my space career till I was 28. I started late, and that's probably the biggest misunderstanding is you have to be this kind of like world-class figure to get into this industry. No. A dumb schmuck like me can get into it. All of you, come in and come join us, right? That's the kind of lesson I give back, and yeah.
What I really take from this conversation is that next generation doesn't just need technical capability, they need perspective. And space is accelerating, but wisdom also must accelerate with it.
Wisdom will come at time. It's at the level of a recent graduate or a senior engineering student, or even like a first year PhD or master's. I wouldn't stress about it too much, and that's probably the thing I hear a lot from younger people who are getting and trying to get their jobs for the first time, and when you're in high school, I get emails from high school kids like, "I really got to get my internship." Kid, you're in year 10. Go play something. Go have some fun. If you really want to get into it, you open up some books. But there's a certain kind of like stress that you got to go through these kind of hurdles to be so high to ride the Ferris wheel, and that's a misunderstanding. The truth is, you could get into it a little bit later. Wisdom will come with time. Don't rush it. Just follow the path, follow your interests. Don't try and follow a formula of what you think you need to be successful. As long as you push forward your interests, keep your creativity, keep your curiosity, let your curiosity drive you into these areas without pigeonholing yourself into an area, you'll be free to explore.
Yeah.
It'll be more fun, you'll be less stressed, and you'll do better. You'll make more money.
So according to you, what skills will matter most in the next 10 years of the space sector?
It depends. Space sector, if you want to look at it, you divide the space sector into 3 parts. Rockets, satellites, and operations. That's the holy trinity of space, as I tell people. Each one of these has their certain field. If you're rockets, then it's chemistry and mechanical engineering. I would look into modern manufacturing. If it's satellites, is a little bit of mechanical, mostly mechatronic. And there's where people talk about edge computing, but I'd really look into morphable structures in avionics, and then software. We've talked about plenty on this talk already, and machine learning is going to have a big effect and things like that.
Yeah. So if I could really speak to my younger self, I would really say this to myself: don't rush the trajectory. Master the fundamentals, stay curious, and think long term.
Stay curious.
Yeah.
Drive to what you enjoy. Be willing to change. Be open to change. Don't worry about the noise. You have a lot of noise, especially in Australia. A lot of noise about the space industry. Ignore the noise. People tell you you can do it or you can't do it. It's not important. This is where the stubborn bit comes into your own personal leadership. All right. Be stubborn about what you want to do. If you want to get into space, do it. 100% do it. People are going to tell you no. I was told I was crazy for opening a space company in Australia. I was told I was nuts. To ignore it. It's just noise. Other people are telling you what they want you to do for your life. Who cares your life? You do it. Same with all of you. It's you do what you want to do in your heart, and you follow that. And you're going to make mistakes along the way, and that's okay, because you got 3 tickets in your life. 3 times in your life you could really kind of mess it up, and use those tickets. If you don't use the ticket, time will use it for you.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you do use the ticket, it means, okay, you've made a decision to try something and fail is not a terrible thing. You got 2 more tickets. Pick yourself up off your bootstraps and try again. And you've got time to make some early mistakes, and it's not going to kill you. It's not even going to hold you back that much. It might spend a few months.
Yeah. True. I agree.
Good.
Jason, thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for sharing not just your work, but your journey and philosophy. Your story reminds us that space isn't just about rockets and satellites. It's about responsibility, resilience, and the humans behind the missions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.